do have one of the really interesting innovations that I think is very untapped that I would kind of love to touch on and hopefully is in the roadmap for USDG and other natively issued assets on Solana is token extensions. I'm sure some people have heard of this, but the TLDR is token extensions are an updated version of the smart contract that you use to issue assets on Solana. And the term extensions refers to a set of extensions you can turn on when you mint, for example, and use stablecoin on Solana. Things like the ability to send the asset with confidentiality, the ability to create a programmatic whitelist or blacklists at the asset level. So let's say you were minting an asset and you just wanted it, the example I gave, where you're a payouts company and you just have a closed ecosystem of customers that you want to be touching this asset, you can mint your own stablecoin or own dollar, tokenized dollar of your company and have a little list of accounts that are the only ones that can ever touch that asset. And so I bring this up in that one of the things, and so this is, I believe, should be on the roadmap for USDG. So things like confidential transfers, there are still some protocol level finality updates and auditing that's being done, but I think probably in 4 to 5 months, it should be ready for prime time. But this is going to be a killer feature, which will allow for masking of the amounts that are transferred and the wallet balances, but with auditability at the issuer levels. It's, it should not cause any issues, kind of the compliance or regulatory side. Like a subpoena could, the issuer, if they're given a subpoena, could unmask the specific amounts for a regulator. But in general, on the block explorers and whatever, the amounts are masked, which I think is an important feature in payments.
That's massive, super exciting. What, from your perspective, I think wrongly people, this is my own perspective, I think people are wrongly, when they hear that, they think of like shady, like they feel like, oh, that's a shady thing. I actually totally disagree. What use cases in your perspective are blocked right now because that doesn't exist? Or what, maybe asked differently, like what do you see that unlocking for what industries or what specific use cases that get you excited?
Honestly, I think all of them. I think they're part of the reason why we're so early in this, and stablecoins are still such a tiny fraction of real payments volume that we haven't hit this on the head. So right now, I would say the stablecoin use cases that are scaling up, like all the cross-border use cases ones, are where you have really motivated participants. So like you have someone in LATAM or Africa where it's just a lot harder to get money in, or they want remittances and they want it in stablecoins and they want it instantly, whatever. So I think for those use cases, people are willing to overlook some of the shortcomings of blockchains, which is the kind of the data transparency. I think this is going to open up, but I've heard, again, anecdotally from payouts companies, for example, that have said that they've lost customers because they didn't, they had concerns about the payments volume being on chain and being people able to discern how much business they're doing. So I think it's going to open up. And if you think about like banks doing interbank settlement or, Visa with issuer and acquire settlement, right now it's so small that it doesn't matter. But as this stuff scales, it's going to start to matter. If I'm an issuer and acquirer, do I really want, all of my settlement volume just on display for everyone to see? So I think it's going to touch every use case. We haven't hit it yet because we're small and people are just, piloting and going beyond pilots, or there's self-selection of use cases where people just want that, stablecoin use case so bad that they don't care about that piece. But I think it'll be relevant to every one of them. And again, so with the Genius Act, you have stablecoin issuers that work under a legal framework. Those issuers will have the ability to have the keys to unmask confidentiality if required. But in most cases, they won't, right? If everything is kind of happening business as usual, then you can have all these payments flows occurring. You have this layer of confidentiality, but it's not, it's not illicit, because if there was anything illicit happening, the issuer has the right to kind of unmask those transactions.
Token extensions for you guys is the key kind of feature that allows for this to be possible.
100%. Yeah. And look, if, I know there are people, in the deep crypto native world that don't love the ability for an issuer to be able to kind of mask and unmask confidentiality. If you don't like that, don't use it. But I can tell you that most enterprise regulated financial institutions, would want to work with a trusted issuer, would like the fact that their transaction amounts are confidential, but that there is a trusted issuer that has keys if there's some illicit activity happening and there needed to be some sort of investigation to kind of understand what's going on.